Hey everyone, my name is Paul Pacheski and welcome to the Real Estate Classroom YouTube channel. Like always, do me a favor, give this video a thumbs up, hit that little red subscribe button, click on the notification bell, and comments and questions. We love comments and questions. Put them down below. I'd appreciate it. So this is video 2 of 3 discussing appraisals. In this video, we're going to discuss forces or things that impact valuation. All right, this is video number 2. Let's get started. So in our first video, we discussed appraisals, the 50,000-foot view of how the appraisal process works. We discussed the definition of valuation, and we also discussed reasons why someone might need an appraisal done. In this video, we're going to discuss things or forces that impact or affect the value of property. There are 4 major buckets, major ones, that do impact from a broad perspective the valuation of a community, a neighborhood, or an individual property. And the first one is government or political actions. This is, for example, the Fed. If the Fed is raising interest rates or lowering interest rates, that has an impact on mortgage interest rates. Property taxes. In many communities, property taxes are extremely high, and every time the taxes go up, that impacts the buying and the selling of residential property. It impacts rents, those type of deals. Local regulations and zoning and building codes and environmental regulations, they all impact the value of property. I got to be honest, about, 20 years ago, I was teaching a pre-licensing class, and there was a couple that was in my class, and they perfectly illustrated a situation that impacts the value. So they had come from Oregon, and I'm in Nebraska, and they had purchased, I don't remember, it was 50 or 100 acres of timber. The value of that land was in the timber that was on it. And they paid $1 million or $2 million for it. They actually had a mortgage and everything, and it was based on the income that the timber would provide. Well, shortly after they closed, mind you, they have a $1 million or a $2 million mortgage. The federal government came in and they discovered there was spotted owls on that property. And at that time, the spotted owl was on the endangered species list, and they could literally not do anything. And they were very restricted on just hiking onto their own property. And it totally devalued the property to pretty much worthless. And they ended up losing everything. Again, that is an example of where regulation impacts the valuation of the property. Number 2, the economic or financial factors. Is the industry, or are there industries coming into this community? Are they leaving? Are they bringing jobs in? Are they laying people off? All of that determines that future impact value. Number 3, physical factors. The external location conditions, such as access to parks and highways and hospitals and schools. Many areas of the country, schools determine the value. That's probably one of the more prominent amenities that impact value. In my location here in Omaha, it's not uncommon that one school district, the prices, the demand and the prices of housing is going to be higher than other school districts. And then sociological factors. This is where we're matching the community's population density with the housing trend. So for example, if a community has a high density of elderly, well, how many ranch homes are in that community? There's a direct correlation between the two. And if they're not balanced, then that can do one of two things. If it either increases value or it decreases it. So those are the things under bucket number 4. But there are other things too that we need to know about. And we're going to discuss them. And there are 11 of them. And quite frankly, I have seen or heard from students where some or all of these concepts are on their real estate licensing exam. In fact, on my broker's exam, I had a couple of these that are on your screen here. So we're going to discuss each one of these because you have to know. Number 1 is highest and best use. One of the things the appraiser is going to do is determine what is a property's current use and what's the value based on current use. Then they're going to determine what's the highest and best use. And many times what we This is in commercial type properties, not really in residential type properties, but definitely in commercial. So give me an example. Maybe the current use is a daycare, and the highest and best use would be a grocery store. But because of the zoning, it is being used as a daycare. And one other concept that sometimes many lenders want to know is what's the intended use and what's the value of that. So the present use is a daycare, highest and best is a grocery store, but the buyer is purchasing it for a garage. So what is the value? You know, these are the things that appraisers are going to sort through. Number 2, the principle of substitution. This is for the sales comparison approach to value, or sometimes called the market data approach. This presumes that a prudent buyer will pay no more for a property than the purchase price of a similar and equal desirable home. Here's another way of putting that. The buyer isn't going to pay more for an existing home than they are for new construction. They can get a newer home with newer amenities for the same price. That is called the principle of substitution. Utility value has to do with what or how land can be used, right? So I got an example on your screen here. So you have a beautiful wooded lot in the city limits. Maybe it's 2 acres. It appears awesome. Man, you could have a home in the city with privacy and everything else. So on the outside, it looks very valuable. But then you do soil analysis and you find out that there's no way you can't build on it. Or there's easements there, public easements that prohibit any kind of building, right? Functional utility refers to the usability of a building that may be on there. So point is utility value looks can be deceiving, and never judge a book by its cover. That's what I always tell my students when it comes to utility value. Number 4, principle of contribution. There we go. Principle of contribution. The value of the improvements is what adds or contributes to the market value of the entire property, not what it costs to add the improvement. This is a key factor when deciding to add to an existing improvement. Now, number 1, an improvement is like a house on a piece of land. This will happen in your real estate career, I promise you. The principle of contribution says that if you put in a $50,000 addition, that's going to bring up the value of your property, but it may only bring it up to $30,000 in value, not the full $50,000 that it cost you to add that addition onto your house. It contributes to the market value of the property, but it does not reach the level of the cost. That is the principle of contribution. Principle of change. Age changes value. Neighborhoods, cities, building trends, that is the principle of change. The principle of change can be good or bad. So if you have a neighborhood that was once the place to live and it was in high demand, but that was 20 years ago, those homes now need updating, those type of things, that's the principle of change. So it may impact negatively the valuation or the demand for that property. Neighborhoods, it can be micro or macro. We see this with individual homes, but we also see it with neighborhoods and towns as well. Number 6, scarcity. Supply always dictates the value, right? And then we add on number 7, the supply of it. So then we got supply and demand. And I think we all know the basic principles of supply and demand. You add supply and demand together, and I think we all know the concept of supply and demand. However, if you have not a lot of inventory, but a high demand, prices go up. If you have a lot of inventory and low demand, then the prices go down. If it's kind of balanced, then prices stay steady. That is the principle of supply and demand. Number 8, transferability. It suggests that good, clear, marketable title can be transferred with relatively ease. If it does not, or it cannot be done with relative ease, then that does impact the value, because many times along with it comes court cost and attorney's fees and whatnot, so that impacts the value. Principle of anticipation is regarding the future value. Value is created by anticipating the future use or income of a property. This is always done in income-producing properties, where we lay out a 1, a 3, and a 5-year budget, a 1, 3, 5-year revenue model, those type of things. And we can do that from what the history or the previous years have told us, and we use trending. 10, principle of regression and progression. This was a concept that was actually on my broker's exam. So what's the difference between the two? And I got it listed on your screen. Regression results from over-improvement in relation to the value of an area. Progression is an under-improved property located in a more expensive area. So in layman's terms, you've always said you want the smallest house in the neighborhood. You want the smallest house in a big neighborhood because the neighborhood brings up your values. If you have the biggest house and the most improved and the newest house in an older area, well, your house doesn't bring up the value of the neighborhood. What happens is you outprice the neighborhood. See the difference? That's progression and regression. You have to know the difference. Number 11 is the principle of conformity. This is where a neighborhood is homogeneous. Now, you might have remembered from a previous video we talked about homogeneous subdivisions, where pretty much everything looks cookie cutter. It looks the same. And when it looks the same, it provides stability for that housing stock. That's called the principle of conformity. And then the last one I added was what's called plottage value. I actually had this not only on my salesperson's exam, but also on my broker's exam. Two concepts here. Plottage is the process, or plottage value is we get plottage value when we combine 2 or more parcels of land. We call that assemblage. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have 2 pieces of property here. This one's valued at 10. This one's valued at 10. But we combine the 2. When we combine the 2, that's called assemblage. Key real estate term you have to know. Now remember, this piece of property was valued at $10,000. This one was at $10,000. When we merged them, now the property is worth $35,000 because it's a bigger lot. So basically, by combining the 2, we increase the value by $15,000. That added value is called plottage value. 2 key real estate terms that you have to know for your real estate exam. Plottage value and assemblage. All right, there you have it. That's it for this particular video. Remember, this is video number 2 of 3. If you want to watch the 3rd video, I'll have it posted tomorrow, and it's right here in the box to my right. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. It helps me grow this channel. I would appreciate it. Click the little circle to my left. And that's it. So I will see you in the next video.